Guten Morgen, guten Tag, guten Abend. So let's do chapter 18. We're just going to do it all as one chapter. We're not going to break up in different units. It's just some odds and ends. So it's not terribly large compared to other chapters. So we have demonstratives first and then some common adjective suffixes after. So we're going to do some demonstrative pronouns. So demonstrative just means you're pointing to something like this one, that one. You're demonstrating its existence. Look at this one, or just sort of emphasizing the pointing to it. So that's why you're demonstrating it, right? So demonstrative pronouns. So we have der, die, das, and die, and we already know these to be articles, like der Mann, die Frau, das Kind, die Kinder, right? Those are articles, the as articles. But these can also be used as demonstrative pronouns. And you think, well, those aren't pronouns. Those belong to nouns. They're articles that precede nouns. They're not pronouns, but they can in some cases be used as pronouns. And you know that pronouns replace nouns, right? So in some cases, der, die, das, and die can actually end up meaning he, she, it, this, that, this one, that, those ones, etc. So the inflection is quite different, and you'll see the different usage. We already did the dieser words from chapter 5. So the thing is, they're called dieser words in this sense, but I also call them der words. It's just that category of words that take the certain endings, you know, the definite article endings. So when we already learned that dieser means this, like this dog, dieser Hund, and that's one way to do it. But then the way we're going to see in a moment, they have similar meanings, but they're used a little differently. So they are the most frequently used demonstrative pronouns and are declined like relative pronouns, as in they have the same noun case changes as relative pronouns. So let's just look at it. This is much better if you look at examples. So, kennen Sie den Filmemacher Volker Schlöndorff? So, kennen Sie, do you know? Den Filmemacher is the direct object, that's in the accusative, and then that's his name, Volker Schlöndorff. Nein, den kenne ich nicht. So the person answers, no, I don't know him, or no, I'm not familiar with that one. So you see how den is just floating on its own? It's still the direct object. So you see in the question it says, den Filmemacher. Do you know the filmmaker? Direct object accusative, den, and it's the article. And so what the person has done when they answered is they've sort of omitted, it would be like, nein, den Filmemacher kenne ich nicht. It's still the direct object, right? No, him I don't know, right? I don't know him. So because it's already been said, you could also say, nein, ihn kenne ich nicht. Ich kenne ihn nicht. But a lot of times people will do this as an alternate form to really emphasize it. Like, oh, I don't know him, or I'm not familiar with that guy. So it sounds a little stronger than like, ich kenne ihn nicht, I don't know him. And then ich kenne den nicht, or in this word order, which is similar, den kenne ich nicht. It's just like, that guy. No, I don't know that guy, right? Den kenne ich nicht. Especially if you're talking about, like, do you know this director? Oh, yeah, I know him. Do you know this director? Oh, no, that guy. No, that one I don't know, right? So you can use it to sort of contrast or emphasize in that way. So you see that den is just by itself, and you would expect normally a noun to come there, den Filmemacher, but it's not there. So this is replacing the whole noun without the noun being there. So when you replace a noun like that, it's a pronoun, right? So in that sense, it's a pronoun. Hat den Film Homophaber gedreht. All right, that's easy enough. He made the movie. Gedreht is filmed, so he filmed the movie or made the movie Homophaber. And the person says, ach, wirklich? Den kenne ich schon. Der ist wirklich gut. So it's the same thing where it's like, oh, really, that one I know. So since we're emphasizing, the direct object is coming first, but it's in the accusative, and the reason it's sort of, the reason you're saying den instead of ihn is because it just adds emphasis. So, den kenne ich schon. That movie, oh yeah, that movie, I know that one. It's really good. Der ist wirklich gut. That one's really good. They say it's, which is similar, but you want to say, because someone already said den Film, and then you're replacing that, you could say der Film ist wirklich gut, but then if you say der ist wirklich gut, and then in speech you really have to emphasize it like that. Der ist wirklich gut, yeah. Okay, so then we have genitive forms. So this can exist in any form, right? We were just looking at that was a accusative, and a nominative, and it can exist. The reason it says they're declined like relative pronouns is so that you can then go look at the relative pronoun chart in chapter 16, and those are all the forms you would use depending on what case you're in, right? So that's the same chart. So, of course, genitive has it as well. So genitive, dessen and deren, are used primarily as demonstrative adjectives. So they act like adjectives, even though we learn them as relative pronouns. And here they're being used as adjectives in a certain sense. So you will see them coming right before a noun, and they work in a kind of a peculiar way. They indicate possession, as you would expect, because they're genitive, and they refer back to the last mentioned noun. So, see this in practice. Mein Bruder besucht seinen Freund und dessen Familie. My brother is visiting his friend and his friend's family. So the reason, obviously, it could be seine Familie. If you want to say his family, my brother is visiting his friend and his family. So imagine if it were, mein Bruder besucht seinen Freund und seine Familie. That would be his, seine. That would be like the standard way to say it. But one way to avoid confusion, the thing is, we have sein here, seinen Freund. My brother is visiting his friend. And then, what if you said seine again? It would sound like my brother is visiting his friend and his family, meaning my brother's friend and my brother's family, right? But what we want to do is say that possessive belongs to the last mentioned noun instead of one from before. So instead of my brother is visiting his friend and his family belonging to a brother, it's my family is visiting his friend and the friend's family. So it's just to indicate that dessen belongs to the most recent noun, which is Freund. So this usually occurs when there are, see how mein Bruder is masculine and seinen Freund is masculine, and so there's two masculine nouns here, and if you said seine, you wouldn't know which, it would be ambiguous which one you're talking about. But dessen makes it super clear that it's the last mentioned one. Die Beschreibung der Maschine und deren Gebrauch finden Sie auf der ersten Seite des Buchs. Or des Buches, it could be es at the end, it's optional. Es for genitive, or just s, and in this case, the standard way is es, but sometimes just the s. Okay, so die Beschreibung der Maschine. Here we have two nouns, right? It's just the subject and then a genitive to describe the subject. So the description of the machine, so these are both feminine, and then und deren Gebrauch. So you want to say the description of the machine and its use, as in the use of the machine. So the thing is, since they're both feminine, you wouldn't know if you said ihren Gebrauch, right? Die Beschreibung der Maschine und ihre Gebrauch. Ihre would be like her because it's feminine, and you wouldn't know whether it's like the machine, the use of the machine, or the use of the description. I guess it makes sense in context, but this is just used to really point to Maschine as opposed to pointing to Beschreibung. Yeah. So basically, you don't need to. What you need to do is be able to recognize that sein and dessen both kind of mean his in this context. So you can translate it to make it really clear. You can add in these things, but you don't have to. You could just say, my brother is visiting his friend and his family, and it would be ambiguous in English. So it's good to add this in, but in principle, like sein and dessen both mean his in this sentence, and then deren means then it's a possessive it's, right? Yeah. Okay. So demonstrative pronouns, forms of der, die, das, and die, are used for emphasis in spoken utterances, and they receive a strong stress, like I was doing on the last slide. Den kenne ich nicht. Oh, that one, I don't know. Yeah. Unlike the relative pronouns, demonstratives have no effect on word order. Yeah, so when we're doing relative pronouns, those are basically, relative clauses are like dependent clauses where they kick the verb. So it's a completely different situation. it's a whole clause situation, right? But these things, these demonstrative pronouns, der, die, das, die, and des and deren, all these, they look like relative pronouns because they match the forms, but they're not. They don't start clauses, or they're just inserted into sentences, but they don't like affect everything else that's going on. Yeah. So antecedents of relative pronouns. So antecedent just means when you have a pronoun, of course, it refers back to something, right? If you say der Mann und seine Frau, like the possessive pronoun has to refer back to someone, like his. What do you mean whose? Who does it refer to, right? So you have to, antecedent just means when you have a pronoun and you wonder, like, what is that even referring to? What is that replacing? The antecedent is the noun to which the pronoun refers. So demonstrative forms of der, die, das, and die are used as antecedents of relative pronouns. So die Polizei kennt den, der das Auto gestohlen hat. So basically, this relative clause, der das Auto gestohlen hat, needs a noun that it refers back to. That's what relative clauses do, is they describe a noun. It's like, eine Bäckerin ist eine Frau, die Brot backt. So Frau, die Brot backt. A woman who bakes bread. So who bakes bread describes the woman, right? So you can see a relative clause kind of like as a really long adjective that's actually a whole sentence. So this whole thing, der das Auto gestohlen hat, is like replacing a noun somewhere, right? It refers to a noun somewhere. It needs an antecedent. So this, in this case, den is the antecedent. Der das Auto gestohlen hat, all that refers back to den, and it's just the shorter form because it would otherwise be die Polizei kennt den Mann, or whatever, the man, or the whatever else, whatever the noun you would put in there, but it's like the one. Since you don't say any other noun, it's just, you can just tell it's masculine. You just say the one. So the police know the one who stole the car. So we're just, and you would, in speech, you would emphasize this as well. Die Polizei kennt den, der das Auto gestohlen hat. Yeah. So it's like the one. Das ist nicht der, den wir suchen. So that's not the one we're looking for. So das ist nicht der. That is not, and it's in the nominative because it's a predicate noun. So this is not the one we are looking for. Imagine if you had der Mann. Das ist nicht der Mann, den wir suchen. This is not the man that we are looking for. But we're leaving Mann out. We're replacing der Mann with just der and emphasizing it. Das sind die Ansichten derer, die gegen uns sind. Yeah, so this is maybe the most, this is kind of a tricky way to use it compared to the other. These are more intuitive, I think, but then once you get into the genitive and dative, it gets a little tricky. So these are the views of those who are against us, of those, right? So because, this is the plural genitive, what we're dealing with is the genitive. So the views of those, so you just have to translate it as of those because it's plural. So that one is dere, yeah. As an antecedent, dere is used instead of deren, yeah. This is like a very, this situation would not happen all the time, but you never know. So deren, this is showing how it's different from the relative pronoun charts. Normally you have deren for your dative plural, right? But then here we have dere. Yeah. Okay, now we have preceding genitives in a series. So der, die, das may stand directly before a genitive article. So yeah, then it gets a little weird looking because it looks like we have two articles together, but one of them is actually being used as this demonstrative pronoun situation. So die Gesetze Deutschlands und die der Vereinigten Staaten sind verschieden. So you can just imagine that something is missing here. Die Gesetze Deutschlands, the laws of Germany. And then die Gesetze der Vereinigten Staaten. So It's like the laws of Germany and the, in parentheses, laws of the United States are different. So because we've replaced Gesetze, see how they both have die Gesetze, it's a plural, yeah. So we've just omitted Gesetze for brevity's sake because we already said it, right? So Gesetze is gone and it's just been replaced with die alone. So that's why it's a pronoun and not a noun anymore. So you can just say those of, and it's in, that's for the plural, and then this next one is that of, since it's singular. So let's look at this. Der Name des neuen Buches und der des alten sind sich sehr ähnlich. So the name of the new book and der, meaning der Name. So the word Name has been omitted here. So the name of the old one, right? The name of the new book and in parentheses the name of the old one, and here the other noun has been omitted. We saw this when we did it more with adjectives, where des Alten. So we have our adjective ending, but the noun has been omitted, so it's just implied. So here we have two implied nouns because we already said der Name, and that's implied with here with der implied Name. And then des Alten, here Buches is also implied. So that of the old one. That's what we have, that of the old one, instead of the name of the old one, right? Yeah, okay. So we have das. Now, das can be used as demonstrative pronoun with either singular or plural verb to mean this, that, or those when no specific antecedent exists. This is like the first day when I say, das ist der Mann. This is the man, or that is the man. So this is literally just going back to something that you just learn in the beginning, that when you say das ist, that means this is or that is, or those are, depending on if it's plural afterwards. So das ist die wichtige Information. That is the important information, or this. There's really no, just by context, but it doesn't really matter in German. So das ist, that is. So super simple. Das sind die Bände mit den schönsten Bildern. These are the volumes with the prettiest pictures, meaning books, volumes. Das sind, similar to English, you do conjugate this. So die Bände is plural. So die Bände sind, the volumes are. So you do conjugate that. But then in English, you have to change that is to those are. And in German, you keep the das in both situations. It doesn't matter singular or plural, but you do conjugate that, ist versus sind. Yeah, so those are. It's possible for an entire class to be referred to by the demonstrative pronoun das. So, die Architekten entwarfen eine Vielfalt von Plänen. Das hat uns sehr beeindruckt. So the architects designed a variety of plans that impressed us a lot. So it's not that different from the other one. It just refers, like, what impressed us a lot? The fact that the architects designed a variety of plans. That whole idea impressed us a lot. Das. So it replaces that whole thing. So then we have diese and jene. So we did diese back in chapter 5, I think it was. And I think jene was also included there. So those were demonstrative pronouns. And they are declined. They have the same endings as all of the other diese words. So if the antecedent of diese is unspecified to or an entire clause, the short neuter form dies occurs. Yeah, so dies ist mein Vater. So you will encounter this sometimes. You could also just say das ist mein Vater. So das ist mein Vater, dies ist mein Vater. There's really not a big difference in meaning here, but dies does sound a little archaic nowadays. The more neutral way to say this would be das ist mein Vater. Dies, of course, it's like in Die Zauberflöte, the magic flute, Tamino sings, Dies Bildnis ist besonders schön. This portrait is especially beautiful. So he says dies Bildnis instead of dieses Bildnis, and maybe that was done for the amount of syllables in the meter, but it sounds a little archaic nowadays. But it's the same thing. Das ist, dies ist. Von den zwei Artikeln ist dieser der interessantere. Of the two articles, this one is the more interesting. Yeah, so dieser, you can just leave out the noun as you might expect because it's just Artikel, right? Von den zwei Artikeln ist dieser Artikel der interessantere. So Artikel has been removed because it's already said, so you just say this one, meaning this article. Dies und jen often occur as demonstrative adjectives together with a noun that is being pointed out for emphasis. Dieser Mann ist mein Vater. Ja, dieses Buch finde ich am interessantesten. Es war viel besser als jenes. Yeah, dieses, this one, and then jenes, that one. So, yeah, here we have dieser Mann like we did a while ago, and dieses Buch. That's how they were used initially. And then jenes is a similar idea. It's just that it's been omitted, that one. It's just omitted because it's implied. And then dieser and jener can also mean the former and the latter, like this one and that one, right? So in literary usage, dies refers to the person or object that's mentioned first and or that is physically closer at hand. And jen plus ending is the second or the farther away from the speaker. So Furtwängler und Karajan haben beide die Berliner Philharmoniker geleitet. Dieser von 1922 bis 1945 und dann von 1952 bis 1954, jener von 1954 bis 1989. So it's just to say, okay, these two people both directed the Berlin, led or directed the Philharmonic Orchestra. So then dieser referring to the former. So dieser is like the first one, the former. And then jener is the latter, the second one, the latter. Yeah. Okay, so then we have derjenige, diejenige, dasjenige, diejenigen. So you see der, die, das, die. It's just the articles plus the word jenige, right? So, and it can have endings as well. Diejenigen. It's basically jenige acts like an adjective here, so it takes the adjective endings. Diejenigen, die noch nicht untersucht worden sind, müssen zurückbleiben. Those who have not yet been examined must remain behind. So it's just another way to say those. It's pretty common actually. Diejenigen, yeah, those. So it's usually followed by a relative clause like this. Yeah, die, those who, whatever it is. Yeah. Die Polizei sucht denjenigen, der das Geld gestohlen hat. Yeah. The police are looking for the one, denjenigen, der das Geld gestohlen hat. So we could use the ones from the beginning of this unit and say, die Polizei sucht den, der das Geld gestohlen hat. And that would be fine. You could just say den here. It would sound more conversational. If you say just the den, it sounds more casual. And then denjenigen sounds higher register. This is something that you would write more, you would find more in writing than just the den. Das Belohnungsgeld wird demjenigen ausgezahlt werden, der den Täter anzeigt. So the reward money will be paid to the one. Now we're in the dative. See how we have our dative article here? And then the adjective ending that would normally be on any adjective following this dative masculine. Yeah. So to the one, and then we got to finish our verbs, and then we have our relative clause here. Yeah. Okay, so it's usually followed by a relative clause, and then the first part is declined like a definite article, as you would expect, der, den, whatever it is. And then the second part takes the adjective endings. So yeah, diejenigen, see how it's always, if it's plural, diejenigen, it's always going to have that N. But if it's feminine singular, then it's diejenige, feminine singular. Yeah. Okay, so then derselbe, dieselbe, dasselbe, dieselben. This is a similar idea where you have the article plus an adjective, and then it'll take whatever endings, like it's just an article and an adjective, but they're written together basically. So it doesn't. It has become one word, but it's still grammatically it functions as if it were an article and an adjective. So it means same. Yeah, so selbe means same. This group of demonstrative functions in a fashion similar to derjenige. It's the same concept. Der neu entdeckte Dinosaurier hat dieselben Eigenschaften wie der Tyrannosaurus Rex. So, the newly discovered dinosaur has the same characteristics as the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So, dieselben, and it's just the same, but it's written together as one word. Dieselben. Dasselbe, the same thing. Yeah, so if it's neuter like this, it can just be like the same thing without having any noun after it. Dasselbe, the same thing. Wurde bei der letzten Entdeckung beobachtet. The same thing was observed during the last discovery. There's a nice passive sentence right there in the simple past. Auch unsere deutschen Mitarbeiter benutzen diese Methode, seit sie dieselbe kennen. Yeah, so our German coworkers have also been using this method since they became acquainted with it, since they've known it. Yeah. So it's just sort of saying Methode, diese Methode, dieselbe, the same, since they know about the same, meaning the Methode, the same method I just mentioned, the same. Yeah, so in that case, it doesn't really, to say the same is a little bit confusing, but it's just sort of emphasizing that dieselbe, this same method I just mentioned. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty rare way to use dieselbe though. Okay, so you may have encountered the word gleich already. Gleich means same as well, right? So we were just doing dasselbe, dieselbe, derselbe, all those, right? And then what about das Gleiche? Because you can have das Gleiche and then whatever other noun. Das gleiche Auto would be the same car. And there's often a question of like, well, what's the difference? This means the same something and this means the same something. So the best example to show the difference, there is a slight difference in meaning between these. So here we have, Sie tragen den gleichen Pullover. These two girls show up to a party and they're wearing the same sweater. They're wearing the same sweater. But this one is, Sie tragen denselben Pullover. They are wearing the very same sweater. So denselben would be the very same, as in they're wearing the exact same sweater. It's not that they're wearing two copies of the same sweater. They are wearing the same sweater. Sie tragen denselben Pullover. So derselbe, dasselbe, all of those are going to be like pointing to the exact same one. And then you can use das Gleiche for not emphasizing that it's the exact same one, just the same general idea. Yeah. So those were all the demonstrative pronouns. Now we just need to pick up a few adjective endings you probably noticed by now, but it's good to have a little list to see how many adjectives and how common this is. So los is a lot like English less. So arbeitslos is unemployed. You could say he's workless. He's without work, right? Workless is not a real word, but you get the idea. Arbeitslos, unemployed. Atemlos, this one does have less in English. So atem, it means breath, and then los is less. So it's literally breathless. So sometimes they translate in a very parallel way. Atemlos, breathless. Bewegungslos, motionless, same thing. Brotlos, breadless, without bread. Erfolglos, without success. Successless is, I think, a better word in English. Successless, I think we should start saying it that way, but unsuccessful is fine. Farblos, colorless, yeah, without color. So it's literally just color, Farbe, and then los put together. Furchtlos, literally just fearless, yeah. Geldlos, without money, moneyless. We could say penniless is something we do say, though. Machtlos, powerless. Yeah, literally, Macht is power, and then los is less, powerless. Obdachlos, homeless. Obdach means like shelter, so shelterless. Sprachlos, speechless. Very similar. Sprachlos, speechless. Zahllos, countless. Yeah, because Zahl means number, so without number, countless. So that's very common. So whenever you see the los suffix, you know it's like something is without. And then fach means amount of times, a lot of times, or what they mean by fold is like manifold. You know, manifold is kind of a less common word for many times. So dreifach, 3 times. You can do this, mehrfach, several times. Vielfach, many times, manifold. Yeah, zehnfach, 10 times. And then this means like the amount, like 10 times the amount. But then if you're talking about a sequence, like how many times you've done something, then it's dreimal, vielmal, and then zehnmal, einmal, dreimal, viermal, all those. Mal is also used to mean the same amount of times as well. So einfach means simple because it's like one fold. It's like fach means a lot of things, but it can refer to like folding. And so the thing is, something I always picture like a origami where you only make one fold. So einfach really means one fold, and that would be a very simple piece of origami if you just folded something once, right? So that's einfach, but it really means simple or sometimes easy, just not too complicated. Einfach, yeah. And then we have here we have the times, yeah. So this is the one I mentioned with times. Yeah, so like times the amount, dreifach, versus times as in a sequence of recurring things. So damals, at that time, einmal, once, jedes Mal, every time, keinmal, never, no times, and then manchmal, sometimes, oftmals, frequently, viermal, four times. So you can do the ending einmal, zweimal, dreimal, viermal, fünfmal, sechsmal, any number. Zigmal, over and over, 1,000 times. Okay, then we have ba, endlich. So these are, yeah, ba is kind of like able, right? So trennen is separate, and then trennbar is separable. Essen, to eat, and then essbar, edible. Danken, to thank, and then dankbar, thankful. Yeah, full sometimes. And then lich is similar to English ly and sometimes able. So fragen is the question, and then fraglich, questionable. Ganz, the whole or entire, and then gänzlich, entirely. Monat, month, and then monatlich, monthly. So then it's a ly. Yeah, and then you can see we got the umlaut ganz, gänzlich, that L, that it's basically that I is sometimes that is making that's coloring the vowel right there. So sometimes you get ganz, gänzlich, ja, jährlich. So jährlich is yearly, but ja is year with a A sound, and then jährlich, when you add the suffix, it changes the previous vowel. We do this in English too when we get something like serene, serenity. Serene has an E sound, and then we add the suffix ity, and it changes the way that vowel sounds. Serene, serenity, changes the vowel. Ja, jährlich, ganz, gänzlich. Okay, so now we have your end of chapter exercises for Kapitel 18. So go ahead and look through these. Hopefully they're a good time for you. And then we will see each other in the next video and also on Zoom for our next Zoom meeting. Vielen Dank und viel Spaß bei den Hausaufgaben. Wir sehen uns bald. Tschüss, auf Wiedersehen.